Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Little for PokerNews.com. Today we get Ace-King offsuit. That is a good hand. If you can get Ace-King every hand, you'd probably win every tournament you play. And here we open to 400. I can just see the people in the comment section now saying, you wouldn't win every tournament you'd play if you get Ace-King every hand. Well, if you played it well, you probably would. Anyway, that's irrelevant. Let's try to not talk about irrelevant things. Let's talk about relevant things today. So I raised to 400, button calls and big blind calls. Flop comes king 7-2. I mean, what more do we want in life, right? We have basically the stone nuts. We only lose to pretty much exactly 7s and 2s. Maybe king 7 suited sometimes. We have a great hand. When you have a significant range advantage, which will very often be the case when the board is very dry and there's one big card and you are the pre-flop raiser, you can often bet very small with your whole range, and there's not a whole lot your opponents can do about it. And if you're betting with a somewhat wide range, it makes it hard for them to get value with their good hands. But also, if they fold too often here, it lets you make very, very cheap bluffs. So this is a great spot to bet small. That's exactly what I do. I'm doing it here with a great hand, but I would also do it with Jack 10 offsuit. So I bet 500, and I'm just going to put the opponents in pretty bad spots. Only the button calls, which is fine. We're loving life at this point. Turns a king, which is also great. And now I have to decide how to go about getting full value. Okay, if he called the flop with ace high or 9-8 of hearts or something like that, then he's not, well, I guess 9-8 of hearts may put in more money, but let's say he has 9-8 of clubs, right? The total garbage hands are not going to put in any more money, so I don't care about those. My goal now is to get money in the pot against a king, which I'm crushing, a bluff catcher, or a backdoor flush draw. Bluff catcher being like pocket nines or something like that. And I think all of those hands will call a somewhat sizable bet. At least the made hands will. And if 9-8 of hearts folds for 2,000, that's fine, right? Because that hand has plenty of equity, and I'm going to definitely have to pay it off if it gets there. So this is certainly a spot where you want to use, you at least want to consider using a big bet. This is actually a spot where you probably want to be splitting your range up and using at least two bet sizes. Because if I have something like pocket eights, I would like to bet small, right? If I bet 600 on the turn, now my opponent may call with that queen, jack of clubs and float again, or he may call with ace high. But you don't want to bet 2,000 with pocket eights because now your opponent's going to play pretty well, right? They're going to start folding out all that stuff. So this is one of these scenarios where I definitely will be splitting my range up. And with my nut hands, I want to be betting big to try to make sure we get paid off when we are also against a very good hand. So 2,000 is good. The opponent calls, which is great. Now I think he has, well, like I said, probably has a lot of flush draws, kings, and sevens or better. So keeping that in mind, on the river. River's the jack of spades. Pretty much a blank. King jack gets there. That is a real hand we could be against. It's very, very likely. It is important to realize, though, that king queen is way more likely. And that's because if you count the number of combinations that are available, there are more king queens than king jacks, right? It's always important to try to count combinations. So how many kings are remaining in the deck? There's only one, right? I have one and there are two on the board. So there's one king. How many queens are remaining in the deck? 3. Well, 4, right? There's 4 king queens that the opponent could have. 4 queens are remaining in the deck. How many jacks are remaining in the deck? It's only 3, right? 3 times the 1 king is 3. So he could have 4 king queens or 3 king jacks. That means he is more likely to have king queen than king jack. Same story for king 10, right? King, and then you have to ask, is king 9 suited possible? Well, there's one of those too, right? King 9 of diamonds. So as you can see, he's way more likely to have a non-full house king than a full house king. And he's certainly going to call with all of those, right? Okay, what else? Busted flush draws. We're not so concerned with those, although if we check, maybe those bets. And if we check, I bet a king bets too, so maybe checking's good. What if he has pocket eights? Will he ever call a big bet with pocket eights? Probably not. So the more I'm thinking about this, if I think the opponent has busted flush draws, busted backdoor flush draws, which he could, this is a spot where I would like to check because he's going to value bet the kings and he's also going to bluff with the hearts. If, though, he doesn't have very many busted hearts, I want to go ahead and bet. That's going to put him in a bad spot with his marginal made hands like pocket eights. And also, we're going to get however much we bet out of a king. Whereas if I check and he bets like 2,000 with his king, whereas if I would have bet, I could bet 5,000. You see, we leave 3,000 chips on the table there. So for that reason, I like this big bet. Although I could definitely see checking being right. Now he raises. Oh gosh, this is not what we wanted. When he raises, what does his range look like? Well, depends a lot on the player, right? Some people are raising here with bluffs some portion of the time. Some people are never raising with bluffs here some portion of the time. If the guy's never bluffing with hearts, then that means he's pretty much exclusively raising for value. So let's assume the opponent's competent. Take a look at this hand from his point of view. I raised pre-flop, I bet into 2 people on the flop, I blasted the turn, and then I blasted the river. Would you actually value raise king queen here? I wouldn't. Would you raise king 10? Well, clearly not if I'm not raising king queen, right? So if I'm not raising king queen, what am I raising with? I'm only raising with king jack or like slow played pocket 7s or pocket 2s. So even though there are way more king queens and king 10s and king 9 suited than there are king jacks, 7s and 2s, is that actually true? There are 4 king queens, 4 king 10s, 1 king 9 suited. That's 9. There are 3 king jacks, 3 pocket 7s, 3 pocket 2s. That's 9. So there are actually 9 hands we lose to and 9 hands we beat that could conceivably value raise. But would they all value raise? I don't know. Like I just said, I don't think king 9 would ever value raise. That'd be ridiculous. I don't think king 10 will raise very often. Maybe king queen does. Let's assume we know he's raising with king queen, king jack, 7s and 2s. This is assuming he even slow plays those hands, which may or may not be true. That means he has 9 value hands and 4 bluffs, which means he's bluffing about a third of the time. 4 divided by 9 plus 4, which is 4 divided by 13, which is about 30%, I think. Again, all the math here is very rough. I do it off the top of my head. Sometimes I can barely add. So if he's bluffing 30% of the time, what does that mean? All right, let's think about this. We have to put in 7,000 to win a pot that's going to be my 12 plus his 12 plus 6. So that's 30. 30 is the pot. We have to put in 7. So 7 divided by 30 is about 23%. So we need to win here 23% of the time. Okay. If he's only raising king, queen, and better, I'm going to win 30% of the time. So if that's the case, I have an easy call because I'm going to win 30%, but I only need to win 22% due to the pot odds. Great, easy. But there's a problem here. What if he's not raising king, queen? I just told you I'm never raising king, queen here. So if I'm never raising king, queen here, and this opponent's competent, he may not either. So now what's his raising range? Well, it's king, jack, 7s, and 2s. And I lose to all that. So that means I can't call with anything. Like king, jack is a fold, or at least probably a fold, very close to a fold. So if the opponent's never bluffing and he's never overvaluing, I should fold this. If he is ever overvaluing, king, queen, I have an easy call. If he's ever bluffing with a heart draw, like say he's bluffing some heart draws, even like 4 or 5 combinations, then I have an easy call. When this is the case, I typically lean towards calling. I don't like it, but quite often one of those two things will be true. Either the opponent is overvaluing or the opponent is bluffing with a busted heart draw. Sometimes you're going to be wrong. When you are, you lose 7,000 chips. But if the opponent literally never bluffs here, they're often making some sort of game theory optimal mistake. If they're making a mistake, it's okay for you to pay them off some portion of the time if you are unaware of the mistakes they are making. So this is a spot where I think we have to call. Obviously, there are some better hands in our range we could have, like king, jack, and 7s and 2s. So I think this is a hand that could conceivably be folded, but just breaking it down the way I just did, I don't need to go through it again. This is a spot where I think we probably have to pay, but I really don't like paying, and I do think we're going to be behind here a lot. But not 23%. Or whatever the inverse of that. So yeah, that's going to be it for this hand. Let's see if I called. Probably called. I'm such a calling station. I do call. And wow, pocket 7s. We just played it slow all the way. And he got us. Sometimes they get you.